Hi guys, welcome back to the Drone Files. In this video we have a review of the new TronXY X3S 3D printer, which is a $300 DIY kit and one of the most affordable large format printers currently on the market. Some of you might remember they released the Tron X3, which is a smaller version of this printer. It has a print volume of 220 by 220, and the problem with that printer is it has a wobbling a print bed that wobbles very badly because of the single aluminum extrusion. And with the X3S, the company has decided to put two extrusions at the bottom here, which greatly helps in stability of the print bed, so there is no more problem with the print bed wobbling. Now the X3 is still available for sale at a much cheaper price, and they have actually improved on the Y-axis beam by adding an L bracket so to prevent it from wobbling. So essentially everything else on the X3S is actually the same as the X3. The major differences being that it has a larger print bed, larger print capacity, and the dual beams at the bottom of the bed, which helps improve the stability of the bed. So at $300, it comes as a DIY kit, meaning you have to assemble it yourself. There are a few parts that come pre-assembled. I believe it was the hot end carriage assembly here, which was fully assembled. Apart from that, everything else you have to assemble from scratch. Assembling this printer took me about 11 hours, which is quite normal for a DIY kit. Normally you would take about 8 to 12 hours or maybe 15 hours to build one. Overall, the quality control of this printer is not actually up to my expectations, because there was a I believe some M4 T nuts that were missing, and there are a few minor flaws here and there. For example, the fan rubs against the fan housing, so it makes quite a loud buzz when it spins. And also they provide a plastic, a kind of plastic removable bed that you're supposed to place on top of the heated bed, but that one was really badly, the quality was really bad that I decided not to use it. And as you can see, I have a sheet of glass, which looks much better than the piece of plastic that they provided. One thing I'd like to mention is, although the X3S is advertised as having a 300 by 300 bed, it actually measures 350 by 350. So as you can see here, the glass that I have here is actually 300 by 300, and the bed is actually slightly larger by about 50 millimeters on each side. So I'm not sure why they advertise it as 300 by 300, because maybe what the company means is it's the printable area is 300 by 300. Once fully assembled, the X3S is actually quite sturdy. The extrusions are quite accurately cut. So the spacing for all the rods, all the extrusions are quite accurate. They are within 1 millimeter of each a parallel distance with each other. Another problem I had with the quality is the quality of the parts. The flexible coupling shafts, which were actually bent. So as you can see here, I have the solid rigid aluminum shafts to replace the ones that came with this printer, because when those shafts were bent, I wasn't able to print properly. What happens is because of the bent shaft, the rods would wobble quite a bit. So they would wobble on both sides. So they actually cause a lot of problems with the layers shifting. It's not that bad. I mean, you can still print stuff and all that and print upgrades, but the layer shifts were just quite bad, quite visible. So I actually installed the rods correctly, the correct way, which is to insert the rod and the spindle of the motor only 5mm in to the shafts, and even that didn't help straighten it. So I decided to just use rigid shafts, and these are greatly helped in improving the quality. And the X3S is obviously designed to compete with the popular Creality CR10. It even looks like a CR10. The shape of the gantry and all that, it uses the same aluminum extrusions, the V-slot extrusions with the pulley roller bearings. But the CR10 actually costs about $440, although it has better quality control from what I read from reviews. The X3S isn't too bad because it costs only $300, and that's about $140 cheaper than the CR10. So whether you want to get the X3S over the CR10 really depends on whether you're willing to spend time upgrading this machine, fine-tuning it and all that, and just putting up with the poorer quality control that you have on the TronXY. I believe the CR10 actually has better quality control, and that the parts are better made and better packed. With that said, the X3S isn't too bad. It's actually a very good base for creating a great printer. Of course, you need to upgrade it a lot. And okay, let's begin. Let's start talking about the flaws on this machine. Obviously the biggest flaw is the power supply, which is a 240 watt supply, which is actually inadequate for such a large print bed. I believe the X3 has the same power supply, 240 watts, but it has a much smaller print bed at 220 by 220. So this power supply actually really struggles to get the bed heated up. What I found out is that it can heat the bed up to 50 or 60 degrees Celsius, but it struggles to go beyond 75 or 76. Even after you've heated it up for 1 hour, it's still stuck at about 75. I've soldered resoldered the wires, checked the connections and all that. It's still producing poor heating performance. When I asked in the Facebook group for the TronXY users, many people pointed out that probably it's because the power supply is just too low for the such a large heat bed. So if you want to print ABS or any other material that requires a high bed temperature, you must have an upgrade for the power supply. You need probably at least 360 watts to power this heat bed. When upgrading the power supply, you have two options. Either you get a bigger power supply, a higher capacity power supply, or maybe you can add another one for the heat bed, especially for the heat bed. So basically you're having two power supplies. One is for the whole printer, and the other one is for the heat bed. So I believe I'm going the second route, which is to have two power supply units, because I have a spare 240 watt unit here at home. And another issue I have, which is not really an issue, is actually how you deal with it, is that the X3S actually The wiring on the X3S is actually very messy. It's something you need to work on. As you can see here, there's just so many wires sticking out all over the place. Yeah, how you wire this is really something that is of our personal preference. It's probably something that's going to take some time for you to figure out how you're going to wire it. As you can see, there are just so many cables, wires all over the place. And another issue is that the X3S, being a very large printer, actually takes up a very large footprint. So what happens is you actually need a very large table, reasonably large desktop to put this thing on. This separate console box does look neat in product photos, but actually it takes up a lot of space unless you're someone who's living in a very large, who has a lot of space to put this printer on, and that's not a problem. But if you're a guy like me, you're living in a small apartment, then it's gonna be a problem, because look at how big it is. Even this the widest angle on this lens couldn't capture the whole thing. What some users have done is that they've created mounts for placing the console box underneath the printer. That would raise the printer a bit, and reduce the footprint of the printer. Okay, one thing I like about this printers like this is that it has an all aluminum metal construction, metal body, which means it's actually very quiet in printing, except for the fan, which is quite loud because of the buzzing sound. It's actually quite quiet for a printer of its size. Unlike some other printers that have acrylic bodies or a kind of enclosure, plastic enclosure, which are actually quite noisy, printers like these are actually quite quiet. So let's power it up, and I'll let you hear what it sounds like. As you can see, the fan is buzzing a little bit. At the moment it's not touching, so it's fine. So the console box comes with a control knob here, which you can use to control everything from the temperature to the control to the movement. Okay, now I'm homing all the axes. As you can hear, the fan is rattling a bit because of the fan blades rubbing against the housing. So now I'm gonna move the axis, the Z axis, just to show you how noisy it is. It's not that noisy actually, apart from the fan. Now the X3S comes with a Bowden extruder, which is great, and the extruder motor sits on the X-axis beam, which is a good thing, unlike some printers where the extruder motor actually sits on top. Having the extruder motor sit on the X-axis beam is better than having it sit elsewhere, because you only need a shorter tube and you don't have complications of having a very long tube and all that. So as you can see, it's quite noisy, the fan. There's quite a lot of vibration from the fan right now, because one of the blades broke because of the touching against the body. I plan to change the fan. One thing I forgot to mention is that the X3S does not come with a MOSFET installed, which is really a bad design decision, because for such a large print bed you actually need you really need a MOSFET. I think it's compulsory. What I did was I installed a MOSFET inside the console box, and it has enough space for a small one. Here we have a 20 amp MOSFET, which you can get from eBay. So yeah, the first time I printed with this the X3S, it was capable of printing, although the print quality was a little bit poor due to the layer shifts. So over here I have a few prints that I did with the X3S. Now these prints were done in its with the X3S in its original form, like this, like what you're seeing here, without any upgrades, except for the rigid aluminum shafts. So this one was printed when I still had the flexible shafts installed, the ones that were bent. I'm not sure if you can see the details here. It's actually not that bad. I will upload still images for viewing. As you can see here, there are some layer shifts here, which causes which is quite visible. Although the print actually works. It actually turns. And this one was also printed. These two yellow ones were printed in ABS, and the white ones were printed in PLA. Now the calibration cube is not bad. Okay. I did have some issues when printing the Benchy because this printer does not have a filament cooling fan, so it was a bit tricky to print on the overhangs and stuff, like areas like that. But overall it still turned out to be quite okay, not that bad. And yeah, with that said, I believe if with more upgrades on the printer, with more fine-tuning, it's actually capable of printing very good prints. I plan to upgrade this X3S and hopefully come up with another video with all the upgrades done, just to show what it's capable of doing, of printing. I'm quite sure it will be capable of printing very good prints. So you might be wondering if this printer is a good choice over the CR10, whether it's comparable to the CR10. Actually, it really depends on whether you're willing to upgrade. Like I said earlier, if you're willing to spend your time upgrading this printer, fine-tuning it, and making it a better printer. At about $140 cheaper than the CR10, it certainly provides a lot of value, but it's not for those who want something that works well right out of the box, fully assembled. If you want something that has better quality control, then you might as well go for the CR10, because the CR10 not only costs more, but it also comes with a MOSFET and a power supply that is adequate enough for the heated bed. As you know, as I mentioned earlier, the heated bed is cannot go beyond 75 degrees Celsius due to its large size, which is a bit ridiculous because they advertise it as being capable of printing ABS and all that, when it prints fine with PLA, but anything that requires high bed temperature, it will start to struggle. Overall, actually, I'm not saying that I'm disappointed with the X3S. It's actually quite a good base printer to start building on. It costs only $300, so with upgrades I'm sure it's gonna print very well. And well, I guess that's all I have to say for this the X3S. I will come up with another video with all the upgrades done, and I'll post another review about it. So if you found this video useful, please like and subscribe to my channel. Please like this video, and till the next video, I'll see you again. Goodbye.